This is the Chapter 6.1 Scientific Notation Homework Quiz Review. You have three word or real-life problems that will be in your review, in addition to all of your notes for scientific notation, and those will all be permissible or allowed on your homework quiz. In 2003, about 4.25 or 4 and 2500 times 10 to the 11th phone calls were made in the U.S. The population of the United States in that same year was 2.91 times 10 to the 8th. Estimate the average number of local calls made per person. So if you take the number of calls divided by the number of people, you'll get the average. So 4.25 times 10 to the 11th, just because it's in scientific notation doesn't mean the process isn't still the same. The population, again, please note I am putting a label out there that saves us from lining things up incorrectly. It helps us understand what we're trying to prove. It's calls per people or calls per population. 2.91 times 10 to the 8th. This would be the work you would show. And again, you're doing it on a calculator. So you would have 4.25 divided by 2.91, and you would have 10 to the 11th over 10 to the 8th. Let's start with 10 to the 11th over 10 to the 8th. It doesn't require a calculator. You have the same bases, they're 10, and it's quotient of powers. So again, you're using quotient of powers, and that gives you 10 to the 3rd. You use quotient of powers. When you divide on your calculator, 4.25 divided by 2.91, it equals not what it equals 1.46. We're rounding to the hundredths place. And so we have 1.46 times 10 to the 3rd. 1.46 is written in proper notation, and so you don't have to change anything. So we now have to answer it in the manner in which it's being asked. It says, estimate the average number of local calls. Now this is okay. I guess you could put this many local calls per person, but I would rather that you actually moved your decimal. Let's use a different color. 10 to the 3rd moves the decimal 1, 2, 3. You don't have a digit there, so that's going to equal 1,460. If you did it on your calculator, you could get the same thing as well. And that's going to be 1,000. There were about 1,460 local calls made per person. Okay, so make sure that you have made any adjustments to your, you can pause the recording to do this, but make sure you made any corrections to these note copies. Okay, the second word problem on your sheet is a company manufactures two sizes of cans. Cans are a cylinder shape. The large can has a radius that is twice the size of the small can. I highlighted the important information there. The heights of the cans are 4 times the radius of the small can. So this is another bit of important information. So heights, 4 times the radius of the small can. So essentially, H equals 4 times the radius, and that's of the small can, or H equals 4R. So that's something we'll use as we go through the problem. It says, how many times greater is the volume of the large can than the volume of the small can? So you're making a comparison. That's why you need a ratio, large can, small can. Drawing a picture will help. It'll also be part of your grade on the quiz. Draw a picture to help you solve the problem. So we know they're the same height, so I tried to make them look the same height. All you do, let me just quickly show you how to draw a cylinder. It's like an oval. You come straight down to your sides and then curve your bottom, and then you have a cylinder. So if you're not certain how to do it, make an oval straight down from the edges and then curve the bottom. A lot of you are art students, so that's nothing you need help with. Okay, so we have small can, large can. The radius on the small can is R, and we know from the yellow highlighting that the radius of the large can is twice the size of the small can, so it's 2R. And then we've got to have our volume formula for a cylinder. Volume of a cylinder equals pi r squared h. H stands for the height, and that's where this radius, 4 radiuses, is going to be the height. Okay, so large can is going to be pi, and then we've got r. So in the large one, the r is 2r. We put that in parentheses, squared, and then h is going to be the 4r. So I'm going to put a time sign in between these. And then the small can is going to be pi, and then r squared, and the height of this is still 4r. Okay, we are going to actually use the power of a product property first. So I'm just going to bring down the pi. 2r squared is 2 times 2 squared times r squared times 4r. And then pi times r squared times 4r. Now you can see that pi divided by pi is 1. R squared divided by r squared is 1. 4r divided by 4r is 1. And so, because the heights were the same, and so all you're left with is 2 squared, which means it's going to equal 4. So now we need to write a sentence. The large can is 4 times the volume of the small can. Now again, you want to make sure that everything, you can pause the recording, you want to make sure everything is correct on your paper, because you're going to be able to use this paper as a resource, as notes, while you take both the homework quiz and the next quiz that comes after this. You can't use it on the chapter test, but you can certainly study from it, so you want it to be correct. Okay, the third problem is the mass of Saturn is about 5.7 times 10 to the 26 kilograms. The mass of Jupiter is about 3.7 times 10 to the 27 kilograms. About how many times greater is Jupiter's mass? Okay, so you know Jupiter's the bigger planet. You want to know by how much it's greater. So you're going to do a comparison, which means you need a ratio. You're comparing Jupiter's mass to Saturn's. You know it's going to be a little bit more. This is 10 to the 26, and this is 10 to the 26. So it's just going to be a little bit more. All right. So Jupiter's mass is 3.7 times 10 to the 27th. And Saturn's mass, again, make sure you have these labels out in front. It's very, very important. And Saturn's mass is 5.7 times 10 to the 26. Now again, I always start with, you know you're going to do 3.7 divided by 5.7, but I wouldn't start with that. Let's start with what's really easy, 10 to the 27th divided by 10 to the 26. Well, you're going to be left with 110 in the numerator, so 10 to the first. And then when you put in 3.7 and you divide it by 5.7, you're going to need to round this off. But you're not going to want to go to the hundredths initially, because there's a problem with this being a zero here. It's 0.649 round to the thousandths place here, because we actually need it to be 6.49. So that's where we're going with this. And how do we do that? So let me move this down a little bit. First do this. So we have 6.49, or 0.649 times 10 to the first. Well, that moves the decimal one place, so it would be 6.49. And so then if you write it correctly, it would be 6.49 times 10 to the, you want it to be 6.49, so it has to be 10 to the 0. This one's pretty simple, because 10 to the 0 is going to be 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So 6.49 times 6.49 is, 6.49 times 1 is going to be 6.49. All right, so this is, you know that you're writing about how many times greater Jupiter's mass is than Saturn's, and so that's what we're going to answer right now. Jupiter's mass, again, your work is just this little bit of stuff you put in here, is 6.49 times greater. Just round to the hundredths place on these. There are variations on what you do, but if you round to the hundredths, we've got adequate answer. Is 6.49 times greater than Saturn's mass. Now your writing is probably not exactly like this, but it needs to say something similar to that, and you need to have some work written down. Okay, again, I would encourage you to make sure these are copied down properly, because you get to use them on not only the homework quiz today, you'll get to use them on the next quiz as well.